Hello. Now you can hear me. Way to go, Keegan Kolazar, getting the Golden Knights across the line there. Uh, could have been a lot worse. Could have looked pretty bad for quite a while there. Overtime was not great. Third period, really. I said this in the text alert. One of the sleepier third periods I've ever seen for a team that overcomes a two-goal deficit. Like just not really great. So I was quite surprised by how the push came. Like you really didn't see a lot of it, and you end up getting just an awesome play by Kolazar on the back door. So that was really impressive to see that. And I think the biggest takeaway out of this game, more so even than wow, they scored 4 goals at even strength or 5-on-5, whichever one you want to go with here, is scoring down the lineup. Like Hutton gets the goal, but he's on the ice with a bottom six. Amadio's getting the job done in the bottom six. Kolazar gets the job done. I mean, what a crazy goal to think about it. Like Kolazar's first goal, White Cloud's first assist. I wish we were playing hockey squares today because would have been a hell of a square to win the game tying goal there. But like the thing that disappoints me, and like it's weird because it's like, all right, well, you get 2 points, and if you told me they're going to beat Calgary and lose to Edmonton, or lose to Edmonton and beat whatever, if I said you get what I'm saying, if they were to win one and lose one, we would have been fine. But because it's 2 losses, it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel like 2 wins, and I'm like, maybe I'm different in the fact that like I'm not looking at the standings, I'm not looking at the points they're racking up. I'm only worried about how often do they look like the team that won the Stanley Cup? How often are they able to be in that spot where we're like, this is a team that can and will do it again? And I think obviously Shea Theodore not being there, Alec Martinez not being there, despite the fact that Hutton played well and Korzak gets, a good job in overtime out there against McDavid and Draisaitl at one point. And yeah, had to take it away from McDavid. I was a little nervous there, but he recovered well, made the play. And I think that there's something to be said about the fact that we're putting Korzak out there in that situation. So that's good. But to me, like the best part of it is bottom six scoring and third pair scoring. Hutton gets in there and gets the job done. The bigger part, the concerning part though, is like yesterday, I thought we started to see some of the breakdowns in front of the goal that we're not really used to seeing that often. And then all of a sudden today we get a whole bunch of them. Like I think they gave up. Well, let me see if I can get the number. I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 high danger chances in this game. Like that's not a winning recipe for the Golden Knights. 9 and even strength. Oh boy, 19. It was 19-7 expected goals in this game, 4.19 to 1.25. So while it's nice to all of a sudden have the offense back, the fact that you're the team you're playing, you have to consider who you're playing in this particular game. They're going to play you in a 5-4 game. Like it's more likely that they're going to play their game. So to come in here and play that style of game, I'm not so sure we're completely out of this scoring funk that we've been in for as long as we've been in. That being said, I think they're probably going to score a little bit against Vancouver on Thursday. So I'm not that worried about that one. Get a point, get 2 out of that, and all of a sudden it's sort of a successful road trip. I want to see wins, though. I want to see them back to playing the style of game where they're getting consistent offense from a lot of the best players. We're not getting that. There's very little coming from Pietrangelo. Eichel can't seem to get it between the posts. He's hitting the post every time. He can't seem to get it between the posts. I don't blame him really at all. He has not been an issue for me, but the shots just aren't going in for him. I think that will turn. Marchessault not really scoring at the level. Carlson's has certainly slowed down despite the one yesterday. I think that like we want to see the best players starting to really get going again. Obviously, some of the issues with Stevenson, and it brings me to my question of like, did this switch of the lines actually work? Are we actually getting what we hoped we were getting for out of that? Before I talk about that, I'll tell you that this Periscope and all Periscopes this season are brought to you by the Jimmerson Law Firm. The Jimmerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimmerson Law Firm. Golden Knights have lost 3 in a row, 5 of 6, I think it is, and definitely 8 of 11. That's not winning mattering. They got a bunch of points along the way. It's not the end of the world. And again, like I said, I'm not one that's worried about, is this team going to make the playoffs? Where are they going to finish inside of the standings? Is it, you got to knock this team out or what? It's November 28th. It doesn't really matter. The Golden Knights are in great shape to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, something went horrifically wrong and they wouldn't actually have a shot to win the cup anyway. So who cares if well, that's not right. That would be disappointing if that would happen, but I'm not all that worried about that. So like the extra point here, the point there, whatever, not that big a deal to me. It's more so, when are we going to get back to seeing the style of game that we want to see? So about the lines, I think when you look at the switch up of the lines, the biggest thing that jumped out off the page to me is like, we thought this would get more out of Carlson and Marchessault. Like, Carlson's going to help drag Marchessault along. We're not getting the finishing from Marchessault that we were getting. And obviously, you had Barbashev, who's not really doing much in the offensive category outside of missing some breakaways. Yeah, he's been a little bit better, I thought, on that line, but it's not generating the offense that we wanted. The Carlson goal comes on a power play where neither, actually, I think Barbashev is on the ice at the time. Nonetheless, that line is not necessarily doing what we're doing. And I do feel like the 5-on-5 impact of Carlson has actually dipped so far in this. Now, I should note, he's out there against McDavid as often as the Golden Knights can get him out there against McDavid today. The plan was not for him to go out and dominate the game offensively. That was supposed to be to Stevenson, Eichel, and Stone. I thought Stone had one of his better games of the year. I thought Eichel was a little less noticeable in this game than we've seen. And Stevenson continues to kind of be a bit of a problem at this point. It's not jump off the cliff here. I'm not, going nuts. But I do think when you look at making that shift, and you kind of just, I think the easier way to look at it is saying, all right, well, what are our top 9 players? Or if you rank them all in order of top 12, I think there are some issues with how things are lined up at the moment. To me, number 1 remains Eichel. Number 2 is Carlson. So you probably can't put those two together. Granted, you're moving a center away from center. So if we're going to take Stevenson and put him onto the wing, maybe you could do it with Carlson. I'm not necessarily going that route. Number 3, that's where it gets tough, because like, it should probably be Stone, probably. But then I think the next guy, and I want to talk about this guy more, is Amadio. I think Amadio's been awesome all season long, and some of the offensive numbers haven't necessarily been there because time on ice hasn't been there. He hasn't been as high up the lineup. I think Amadio deserves a spot next to Eichel, or at the very least Carlson. I like the idea of Carlson with Stone and then Amadio with Eichel. And now we can fill it in. To me, Barbashev might actually fit down the lineup a little bit more, and that potentially can allow Howden maybe a better opportunity up the lineup. Maybe you give Carrier another shot, or we go the route that I think they probably should go at this point, which is taking Cotter out of the lineup and putting Dorofeev back in and giving Dorofeev that role up the lineup. Like, can Eichel play with Amadio and Dorofeev? It seems kind of ridiculous on paper, but the way that they've played and what Eichel's been able to do, and the strength at which Amadio has for just pulling that puck off the boards, I think that strength alone is going to give opportunities to get Eichel up the ice. And then if Dorofeev can go with him, he's going to be able to shoot the puck and get shots on goal. He has been very good at that. So I look at that, and that then leaves, now you can have potentially Marchessault, Stone, Carlson, which granted, somebody has to play on the wrong side. I understand that. It's not necessarily ideal. You could go Stevenson there. You could potentially even go a step further and now say maybe you put, whether it is Barbashev there or you go with Carrier, and now you've got Stevenson and Marchessault left over on a third line, and all of a sudden we're a lot more balanced. And we're not relying on each individual line up the lineup to get things done. Today, we get the bottom 6 scoring. And part of that is because this is a team that's incredibly top heavy. They play their top players a lot. Their lower end players do not get a lot of ice time. And typically, we see some of the issues where they give up goals. The Golden Knights typically dominate the Oilers down the lineup. So today we saw that. Last night, we didn't. A couple of games prior, we didn't see it really against Dallas. Certainly didn't see it against Washington, didn't really see it against Arizona, even though we probably should. So to me, that's something that we can potentially look at and say, all right, are we getting enough up the lineup to leave the players in place? And I'm not trying to pile on Barbashev, but if Barbashev's not going to offer the scoring and he's really not offering the play along the walls that we saw in the postseason, maybe let's put him back in the role where we know what we're going to get out of him. And he has been getting some of these breakaways. He has been getting opportunities. He has actually made a couple of good plays. Put him with Wah, put him with Carrier or Kolazar or whoever down the lineup, and now get that physicality back going. And maybe that can generate him into getting a little bit more of the game that we know we can get out of him. I've been saying for a while, I don't think he's a 60, 70 point player. I'm not even sure he's a 50-point player. I'm not even sure he's a 40-point player in the NHL right now. Certainly not on this team. But I don't think he's a 20-point player, which is where we're kind of heading at the moment. So I'd like to see a little bit more of putting him in a different position. And again, to Amadio, I can't I feel like we need to spend more time on Amadio because last year the guy's basically the whipping boy, plan E. He's not the most personable guy, and well, at least like publicly, he's not a big talker, kind of deadpan all the time. There are times, he's not a big celebrator. He's a guy who was claimed on waivers. He's in and out of the lineup. You look at the name and you kind of say, like, if somebody tweeted me from Edmonton today and said, I was laughing at the fact that Edmonton or Amadio was on a second line of a team in the second round. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm kind of laughing at that in a way too. But now I don't think it's even close to laughable anymore. And I think the step that this guy has taken is super impressive. Like, there's certainly a level of confidence that you're seeing, but to me, it's more so the consistency of what he's doing in all three zones that's really making him an incredibly valuable player, especially in what Cassidy wants to do. He does two of the biggest things Cassidy asks for out of his wingers. One, pulling the puck off the walls, which he's been awesome at it. And that's why I would love to see him with Eichel, because that's the thing that really unlocks Eichel and gets Eichel moving up the ice with speed, pushes defenses back, and gives the Golden Knights great transition opportunities from a simple play back in the defensive zone. Amadio arguably is the best player on the team this season at doing it. Two is he's been pretty darn good at holding the puck deep in the zone. Like, once you get underneath the dots, there are a number of players that have not been doing it to the same level that we have seen. Stevenson being one of them, Marchessault being one of them. And it's not to say they can't or they whatever. They just aren't doing it to the same level. Wah, I would say, is arguably not doing it as often. He was a big-time guy who was holding the puck deep in the zone in the postseason, not seeing as much. Amadio, we have seen it. And you have that, again, I'd like to see a shooter and another option out there. If it's Eichel, and even if it's Eichel and Stone, if you want to go back down to that plan, I think there's more to give there. And I feel like over the course of the past whatever year and a month or however long we want to go, I feel like the narrative around Amadio is kind of just spare piece. And I think we use that term a little bit in the postseason, and that's because that's what it was at the time. I don't think he's that anymore. I think he's taken a step that I don't think I would have ever projected. I don't think many people would have projected. And I think Cassidy deserves a ton of credit in making that happen. And there's an argument that he's moved way up this depth chart to a point where, like, he was a healthy scratch consistently the first 35, 40 games of the season last year. Now it would be laughable to even consider him a healthy scratch. I think it's even laughable to not have him in the top 6 at the moment, which is where he is not. And he's been performing quite well to this point. Let's talk about special teams. But first, I want to talk about graffitipark.org. Go to graffitipark.org and hire a local graffiti artist to paint a mural at your house or your business or in your backyard or wherever you can potentially have a mural. Here's one that I thought would be nice for today. Love everyone. Look at that. It's a nice mural. If you like words, those words are probably good for me today because, well, Golden Knights have lost 3 in a row and 8 of 11. So let's go with that one. Go to graffitipark.org. Graffiti has 2 F's and 1 T. So do that. There's 2 F's and then there's a T. There's some I's in there. Park, I think you're going to figure out, and it's .org. It's not .com because we don't like .coms. .coms are overrated. WilliamHill.us is also not a .com. SinBin.vegas, not a .com. GraffitiPark.org, not a .com. So we are very anti.com here, apparently. Go to graffitipark.org and hire an artist and get a mural painted. And then when you do, send it to me and I'll put it up on the screen. And it's going to be great. So do that. Power play and penalty kill. Penalty kill is heading the wrong direction. Like outside of what we're getting out of Eichel and Eichel and Carlson, which is awesome. And I think there's like, it's a complete replacement for Riley Smith. Like we have not seen a dip in any way there. And I was not sure we wanted those minutes. I'm still not sure over the course of the season we actually want those minutes on Eichel the entirety of the season. And then what does that look like in a postseason when we're really relying on your top two centers to play together on a penalty kill? What does that look like when we get into a playoff series? We'll discuss that way down the road. For now, those two have been elite. Those two are potentially generating offense. Certainly when your offense is struggling, got to leave those two together. But without Martinez available, with the different guys that have been filling in behind him, and then down the lineup in the forward category, I think the penalty kill's heading the wrong direction. It's starting to be a little bit more passive. They're not nearly as good at blocking up entries. I just think it's not at the position or at the strength of where it was, whatever, 20 days ago, however far you want to go back, when they were killing off like 90% and were top 10 easily in the league. I was concerned about the penalty kill coming into the season. I remain a little bit concerned about the penalty kill. Obviously, Eichel being there helps out quite a bit. I feel like the first 30 seconds of the penalty are pretty much always killed as long as those two are out there, and there's a chance that there's an offensive opportunity inside of that. Once we get past that, now we've got 90 seconds to kill off, and it hasn't been as good. Certainly the other place that's concerning is right in front of the goal. I'll talk about that next. Power play, two issues I have with the power play. One, because of what has gone on with the injuries and then the losing of Riley Smith and the trade of Riley Smith, we're basically down to one usable unit. And that's a problem because now you're putting all the pressure on that particular unit. They're given more time. And what we end up with is what we saw in the back end of one of the power plays today that led to an Edmonton goal. I think it was that power play of the Nurse play. The Golden Knights are tired at the back end of the power play. Nurse jumps up the ice and makes a good play towards the goal. Eichel has to slash him on the wrist, and all of a sudden now, not only is the power play over, but now you're handing one to one of the most dangerous penalty or power plays in the league, and Eichel is the one in the box. Now we don't have him. Carlson's been out there. He might be a little bit tired. You're not in the same position. So I think having that single unit is a problem. Now, can you rip them apart? No, you cannot. That's where being short players is a problem. Last year, Smith and Kessel were on the power play basically the entirety of the season, the regular season. There was hardly any time where they were not on the power play. Now missing both of them, Theodore also being out, now it's 3 of the potential 10 players that were there, and Dorofiev's not in the lineup, and he's a guy who's actually a better option than some of the other players that potentially would be in there. So with that, you're now asking so much out of that top unit, and we know this is not a unit that's been dominant over the course of time. They went on to win the Stanley Cup and weren't very good throughout all of it on the power play. Yeah, they got a couple of them here or there, but this is a game they win if they score a couple power play goals. You have 5 opportunities, you don't get a single one, and really the puck wasn't getting to the net nearly enough. Part of that is there is a confidence issue. Part of that is they were off net on a couple of great opportunities, specifically the one by Stone right in front of the goal. If some of that goes their way, maybe we look at it a little bit differently. But to me, having the one unit that's loaded up and having a second unit that's basically unusable, and really the part of the problem there is there's a leftover player that could potentially be on the first unit in Carlson, or when they switch Stevenson off to it. When you have that, you're not maximizing what you're doing. And I think that alone, just looking at that in the at the macro level of saying like, okay, well, we're clearly short players on the power play. Well, then when you go through a scoring drought, is that all that surprising? So that's where we look forward and say, all right, well, do we need an extra player? Should they have been in on Patrick Kane? I don't know if they actually could have been anyway, but like at that price, not the end of the world. So maybe look around. Some Corey Perry's not a good idea. Whatever the hell happened there, don't do that. But like, and it's probably not Phil again. But look, they can look out there and try and see, can we find somebody that has a little bit more of an offensive tilt and see if we can get down that road. Plus, potentially putting in Dorofeev. I've seen some calls for Denisenko and Brisson. I'm not sure I'm there yet. I need to get out to a horsey game. I haven't been to one for quite a while. So we'll see there. What do you make of the new coach on the bench in the third? What was that? What did I miss? The new coach on the bench in the third. What? Somebody explain to me what I missed there. Dominic Ducharme has been on the bench. Which was Joel Ward there? Is that what happened? Well, Joel Ward's been there, so why would? I'm not sure. Joel Ward, John Stevens, Dominic Ducharme. I'm not sure what's going on. I get maybe one of them wasn't there. I don't know. Yeah, okay. So Joel Ward was on the bench. I don't think there's going to make that's going to be a big deal. It's a different voice. It's fine. I'm not that worried about it. They're all kind of trying to run. Yeah, okay, 4 on the bench. Yeah, to me that's nothing. I'm not all that worried about that. I don't think there's a huge benefit there. Obviously, they have some reason that they're doing it. I would imagine they're trying to mix different things up. I certainly didn't notice that. I would not say that's why they're scoring 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 goals is because they have another forward there like on the bench. I don't know. They're all just trying to run Cassidy's system. They're all trying to get the same whatever voices through. I'm not. That does nothing for me. Maybe I'll change my mind if I get more opportunity to talk to Cassidy and hear from Cassidy about it. But on face value, no, I don't see anything. I'll have to listen to what Cassidy said in the presser, and maybe I'll try and ask him a little bit more about it. But even if he's going over the top saying it's a huge help, I have a hard time believing that that's actually true. But whatever. Sometimes I don't buy some of that stuff. Finally, 2 problems that I wanted to talk about today, that one of which should not be the case and really has not been the case for a long time, and that's pucks in front of the goal. The Golden Knights were not good on pucks in front of the goal. Part of the problem was a lot of these rebounds were breaking off of Thompson, and that normally doesn't happen from either Thompson or Hill. But this team, Bouchard's smashing shots. I think he had 2 at over 100 today. So, it's hard to contain those rebounds. But the bigger issue is the boxing out and the tying up sticks and winning on those pucks, something that the Golden Knights were dominant on and throughout the entirety of the postseason, and certainly for the first 10 to 15 games this season. It's kind of fallen off a little bit. And that's why we end up with 19 high danger chances against in a 65-minute game. Like, that's not what we're looking for. That is a bit of an issue. You're missing 2 defensemen. You have mixed up pairs a little bit. I get that that's a problem, but one of them, like Theodore's not really their best boxer outer. Is that a word? Yeah. So that shouldn't make a huge difference. Yeah, Martinez is good at it, certainly better than Hutton. And Korzak needs to be that guy. Like, that's got to be part of Korzak's game, and we haven't really seen that necessarily. Pahal comes out of the lineup after Logan Cooley takes the puck from him, and we'll see when or if he ever gets back in there. We'll see what happens there. So that's an issue that I'm having. I also think that, like, in front of the goal, yeah, we have the guy there on the Stone goal. I don't think that's that's the way that we need to be scoring goals, is throwing these little soft shots from the point. Plus, Edmonton's completely out of sorts on that play. There's no one anywhere near that side of the ice, so that's not something we get all that often. But nice to have the guy there. Good play by Stone to get a stick in it. The one with Kolizar, that one I like, because now you've got a guy right in front of the goal. You've got another guy off to the side, and they see that, get the shot towards the goal, and he makes a great play with his hands. Like, that is what we want to see more of. That's how you get goals when you're struggling at 5-on-5. So that was certainly good to see. If anybody has questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat right now. I'll take a few before I get out of here. The last one was forecheck. The forecheck was not great for a good portion of this game. And then all of a sudden, you see it ramp up with about 6 minutes left. And that's how they get themselves back in the game. The play that Hutton gets, that is a play born out of forecheck. It's just that you're putting pressure on a team that's been breaking out fairly easy over the course of the game. And that puck squeaks out. Hutton smashes it towards the goal and it ends up in the net. Those are the types of goals we have not seen. And that's because the forecheck hasn't been as aggressive, as consistent, and as connected as what it needs to be and what it has been over the course of the last like 8 months, however far you want to go back. It just hasn't been the same. At the end of the Arizona game, somebody's asking what happened to Pahal and Cooley on the Paul and Cooley play. At the end of the Arizona game, Arizona's one goal, puck went in deep. Cooley completely just takes the puck off of Braden Pahal and puts it to the front. Barbashev was a little slow on the play. They're not able to get it. Ends up in the back of the net. They lose the game 2-0, 1-0 at that point. But that's not great. So that's why Pahal is probably out of the lineup, and we'll see if he ends up ever getting back in. Thanks, Justin. I don't. Thank you. That's all I got for Justin saying howdy to me. Howdy is an interesting one for me. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. This Periscope is brought to you by the Jimmerson Law Firm. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm for sponsoring all Periscopes and Twitter Spaces this season. Periscope is not really a thing and hasn't been for like 4 years, and Twitter isn't even Twitter anymore. So the two terms that I use aren't even right. But I'm not going to stop using them because what are we going to call this? Is it post game? Like you can't call it post game show because that's taken. Like, and it's not always post game, so we can't always call it that. So I don't know. I don't know what to call it. So we're going to stick with Periscope until we come up with a different name. And then Twitter Space, like the word space is kind of confusing. We also used to record at the space, and we're hoping to get back to recording at the space. And that's not a space, that's a podcast. So all these words are rough, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, live stream. All right, so we can call it a live stream, but like that's so generic, like that doesn't. I feel like Periscope is now my word, even, and like we're gonna get to the point where like people don't even know what Periscope was and what the fuck I'm even talking about, which I like. That's the type of thing I like. I like when you feel like you understand things, even though it's stupid or wrong, which in this case, I would argue it's definitely wrong. But we're going to stick with it. Twitter Spaces, I'm still calling them Twitter Spaces. I can't do the X. I can't do the X. I don't. X doesn't make any sense. That's it. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm. Golden Knights again Thursday. We'll see if I do something on Thursday. I don't know. That's it. See you later.